This is the TSG Multimedia podcast for April of 2020. We're sponsored this month by Soundtraxx and the TSG Train Crew on Patreon. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, John Abaticola. This month, I plan to talk a bit about what happened since the last podcast and also what to expect this month, especially considering the coronavirus pandemic's effect on our ability to get out and do things out and about. One of the results of the shelter-in-place order from our health departments is that I'm staying home a lot more and getting quite a bit of editing done. So that's good, right? Now, depending how long it lasts, it might end up forcing me to come up with some different ideas for programs in the coming months. I really hope it doesn't come down to that, because that would also mean that it's affecting more people that I don't want it to. How is the pandemic affecting you? Let us know by adding a comment below the video here. Curious to find out what's happening in your part of the woods. So March was a little less hectic because of the shelter-in-place order, which basically means that we're supposed to stay at home and avoid being around other people in order to help stem the spread of the coronavirus. Our area didn't implement the order until the latter half of the month, so on the weekend of the 14th and 15th, I had a chance to go document a layout for next month's layout tour. This was Dave Connery's Sierra, Carson, and Truckee HO scale layout. TSG Train Crew members had the chance to preview this program a couple weeks ago, and it will come out on the channel next month. On Sunday, the 15th, so the following day, I met up with Jack Burgess to record for 2 episodes of Model Railroading with Jack Burgess. Speaking of that series, the Train Crew also gets sneak peeks of almost all of those shows too, usually a month or more ahead of when they come out on the channel. So I should mention something real quick here in case we have some new viewers. So I know we're adding lots of subscribers every month. I refer to patrons of my channel as the TSG Train Crew. I have a Patreon page set up so that you can support my work. And people who do so get previews and behind the scenes access of stuff that's not available anywhere else. They also get things like credit every month on the show, branded coffee mugs, t-shirts, DVDs, that kind of thing. You're invited to become a supporter by going to patreon.com/TSG Multimedia. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. On Saturday the 21st, I participated in an audio podcast style show called Model Rail Radio. This is a show put on by a guy named Tom Barbalet. A few of my friends from Silicon Valley Lines have suggested over the past couple of years that I try to be on his show, but I'm always so busy that I never got around to it. So in a way, the virus pandemic thing enabled me to finally talk to Tom on his show, and it was pretty cool. He gets a lot of really knowledgeable guests to talk to, and he knows a lot of people all around the world. So it's a pretty eclectic conversation. You can find out more about Model Rail Radio at modelrailradio.com. Tom has a lot of shows archived on that site and is putting out about 1 a week right now. Anyway, our official shelter-in-place order came that same week, so that canceled all the events that involved going out anywhere. So we canceled our scheduled TSG Crew Lounge show that day. Instead, I went live on YouTube for about 2 hours, talking to you, the best viewers on YouTube. We talked about all kinds of stuff too. The main topic of the program that I had planned for was something I've wanted to do for a long time, which was talking about what I take when I'm going out to chase trains. Now, of course, there were a bunch of other topics discussed during the show, as is usually the case when I talk to you directly, because we have interaction and I get asked questions. And I have to say, I really enjoyed that session a lot. It's not really my favorite thing going on camera like this and like what I did that day, but I do enjoy the instant feedback quite a bit. And I hadn't gone live like that in many months, as my attention has been on our other live show, the Crew Lounge panel discussions, and I think I had forgotten how fun it is. And I think I'll be doing that until our pandemic problem is past us and we can get together for the Crew Lounge sessions once again. So then on Tuesday the 24th, I had a chance to talk to my friend George Bogatiuk over Skype for this month's podcast interview. You've seen George on this channel a few times now, at the Bay Area Prototype Modelers Meet from 2019, the NMRA National Convention show that I made last year as well, and also on a DCC installation program I did where I installed a decoder in an Athearn F59 PHI last year. So without any further introduction, let's just go to that interview now. Okay, so I've got George dialed up on Skype here. And thanks, George, for joining us. I appreciate that. I'm sure that a lot of the viewers here know who you are, but for the viewers who don't know who you are, why don't you give us a little background on yourself?
Sure. My name is George Bogatiuk, and I work for Soundtraxx as one of the sales associates. I also help out with support and engineering in some cases. I'm usually one that they bounce ideas off, stuff like that. And pretty much just whatever. I mean, I've done shipping and done a bunch of the other different things as well. So it's just kind of an everything. But myself, I've been a model railroader since I was 14 years old. Have had a great time doing it. And when I was able to work for Soundtraxx, it was kind of like a great opportunity to work in the industry and actually sell to people I consider friends. And so for me, this was a great opportunity I couldn't pass up.
Oh, very cool. And how long have you been working for Soundtraxx now?
Over 11 years now. It's actually been crazy how long it's been because I sit there and think about my previous profession working in auto parts, and now I've been there over 11 years, and I think to myself, wow, it doesn't feel like I've 11 years at all. You know what they say about time passing when you're having fun.
Yeah,
there you go.
They also say that if you're into a job that you enjoy, you never work a day in your life or something like that. So
that's it. So I haven't worked a day in 11 years.
Does it feel like that way to you? I mean, being a modeler and everything?
It does. I mean, I really enjoy what we do because, I mean, like, the one thing for me is being a young kid in the hobby, there's not a lot of people that want to help out, or at least not in the day. And so I did have a group of people that kind of took me under their wing and taught me model railroading. I mean, nobody in this hobby is born knowing how to lay track or how to do scenery, detail models, install sound decoders, and all of that stuff. And somebody taught me all that stuff over the years. And with that information now I'm in the industry and I've got the name on my shirt that I can go back and, with a position of authority, help people do the same thing in their own way. And so when people call up and have questions to us, either myself or Josh, both of us being modelers, we have that unique perspective. And so we take a little bit more time with you to help you understand what you're doing with the decoder to make sure that you have fun with your hobby. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Well, it's supposed to be, right? Because if you're not having fun, they say you're not doing it right.
Exactly.
Right. So, and also I should mention that too. We met Josh in Utah last year at the NMRA National, well, the train show that goes with the NMRA National Convention. And what a great guy too. We really enjoyed meeting him. That's for sure. So you mentioned before that you were doing some kind of auto parts. What was that? What was it? And how did you get into what you're doing?
So, sort of back history. When I was in high school, I was working part-time at the hobby store. It was a local store called Hobby Hub in Arlington, Texas. And when I graduated high school, I had to find a full-time job. And through many various reasons, that store ended up closing out. And so in order just to get a job, I had my new car that I was working on was a 76 Buick Regal, and I got to know some of the guys down at the local parts store. So I went in and applied for a job and basically wore them out until they said, okay, fine, we'll start you. And then I spent about, close to 16 years or so in the auto parts industry, both in an independent store and then later on at a dealership. And then basically got laid off there. For reasons, they reorganized the department, and as the highest paid commission salesperson in the parts department, they had to let me go. And so after that, it was kind of like in a position where I didn't have to have a job this minute, but fairly soon. And so I decided to hold out a little bit because I could have gone to work the next day at another auto parts store. But I decided to hold out and try to find something that I wanted to do instead of something I had to do. And so Soundtraxx was actually my first choice, but didn't really get much of a reception. And so I spent time emailing and resumes and sending things out. And then basically kind of pestered them enough to the point where they said, well, if you're in the area, we'll talk to you, but otherwise we're not really hiring. So they opened the door. So me and the wife, we drove up to Durango, Colorado from Dallas, Texas, and showed up on the doorstep. And the boss lady, Nancy, didn't realize I was coming until Jarrett, who was our sales manager at the time, came in the door and said, so that guy from Texas is here and wants to interview. And she said, what? Okay. So I came in the door and we sat there for about 4.5 hours or so, interviewed everybody with everybody in the building there, and basically got sent home with a one ad section in the paper and said, well, here, start looking for a place to live.
Oh, cool. So you managed to trick everybody, huh?
So far.
I'm kidding with George. We've known each other for a couple of years now and had a chance to hang out. People probably think I'm being rude to you.
Water on a duck's back to me, buddy.
Right? So something you told me. Well, I'll get to the thing that I want to get to later. That's a very obscure thing that nobody knows about George, but I do, and we'll get to that later. But I noticed, and I know this too, but I noticed there's it looks like some kind of jerseys behind you there on your shoulder that have the other shoulder. Looks like you got some stuff. Yeah, what kind? You got some kind of equipment going on over there. What is that?
I'm a goalie.
Oh.
So I've got all this custom-made equipment that has my name on it. And this is one of my other things that I do to just pass some of the spare time is I'm a hockey goalie. And so what you're seeing there are some of the different jerseys of some of the teams I've played for.
Oh, very cool.
And all the equipment back there. When I built this layout, I actually built it in such a way that I could have some hanging space. And so the cantilevers that support the layout at the joints actually are functioning because there's a curtain rod in between two of them that I can hang equipment and jerseys on to dry out in between games. So every morning when I get up, I've got dry equipment to pack in the bag and head to work.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's pretty cool. This is one of the kind of cool things I like doing these interviews for, is because people will learn stuff about you that they didn't otherwise know. Although for you, if people have seen you on YouTube, you're goalie George, so that's one of those things that's kind of gives it away. But they don't know what kind of goalie, right? Maybe you played soccer. They might not know that, right? So I do.
But if they do, I was just saying, if they do watch my channel, there's actually some game footage of me playing hockey.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah, I put a GoPro up on the glass behind the goal and shoot footage. So there's about 2 or 3 different videos of me playing.
Oh, that's cool. I'll have to look at that at some point. So I can see you have a shelf layout there. Is that just like a switching layout that you have there? Or?
Yeah, it's 2 feet deep. So it's only 2 feet deep this way, and it's about 20 foot long. And the industrial area was designed specifically to be the most because I can get the most realistic out of it. And then the last 6 foot is basically a crammed in yard that will eventually expand into either a bigger yard or a whole different thing. But the idea is that the gaps are designed in such a way that I can expand the layout as room permits in either future residence or a future layout.
Right, so it's almost modular in a way, huh? Kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Or built to be moved.
It's just resting on top of these cantilevers. I mean, I can pick this up, and it's a foam base with a plywood frame.
Also, it's pretty light too, then, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Or fairly so. That's cool. And are those Mopac locomotives that you have there?
Of course they are.
Okay.
Missouri Pacific 1978 is what I model. Not necessarily because everybody always says they have the adage of they model what they saw when they grew up. I kind of really more got into it in the late 80s. So it was really towards the end of the Mopac era. But part of the reason I got into it was when I first bought my first train before I worked at the hobby store. We happened to find a GP38 Athearn blue box that was painted in Mopac blue. And I took it home, was like, wow, that's amazing. It's just like the ones up that we see running through town. Well, that was towards the end of that era. The reason I picked 1978 is because I get a good mix of first generation and second generation as they came online. The locomotive here in front of me is a GP15. This is an Athearn Genesis model, but the Jeep 15, being a Mopac guy, is arguably one of my favorite locomotives that the railroad owned. They're short little great switchers. They use them, multi-purpose for either road units and industrial switching. So they fit perfect on a small layout like this, as well as a big layout, that I hope to build sometime down the line.
Yeah, very cool. Working at Soundtraxx, I know that a lot of people who watch the channel are really intrigued by the model railroading industry. What's it like? I mean, what's an example? Like, what's it like to go to work there? What do you do during the day?
Well, it depends on the day. It's kind of it's a standard office job, really. I mean, I'm just selling a widget that I care about in model trains versus something that I really don't, and that's the benefit of it. When I come in to work in the morning, we usually have our stand-up meeting where we all get on the same page, kind of understand, okay, what projects is engineering working on, what projects is marketing working on, what are our goals for the week for sales, things like that. And then we go to the offices, and then usually I'll spend time checking emails, stuff like that. But the part that's fun is when customers call up and they have questions. They have, like, for example, they have a locomotive, they want to get this type of lighting to work, or they have that type of braking they want to get working. And being able to talk to them one-on-one helps make it a little bit more fun and breaks up the monotony of an office job. The other thing is trade shows. And that's one of my favorite parts of the whole job, is being able to go out and meet the customers and spend time talking to them one-on-one, answering their questions, because what's important to them in that conversation may be different than the next guy who's standing and waiting. And being able to answer those questions in those discussions, I get to understand what the customers are looking for, and I'm able to take that, pass it back to our managers and engineers back at the office, as well as, sometimes I've been asked questions of things that hadn't really thought of doing, but we can do with the Tsunami 2. And so, it's like, well, wait a minute, that's something I might want to implement on my own railroad, and those type of things. So that makes it a lot more fun. The tedious part of that, of course, is planning all the trips and scheduling all the trade shows and deciding where we're going and what we're doing. And then when we get there, the people see the front part of it, but there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. You have to set up the booth. Basically, you're standing all day long talking to people, and in some cases answering the same questions over and over again. And then at the end of the day, you're just kind of, now the last thing I want to do is go home and work on my own trains. But sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It just depends. But I mean, that's the part I really enjoy, though, is the getting out and talking to people. But it does wear on you after a while, just because it's a lot of travel. You're away from home. You're not sleeping in your own bed. So you've got a lot of different schedules going on, all kinds of disruptions. You may or may not get time for lunch. Those are all things that factor in. So from that aspect of it, like I said, I truly enjoy it. So I don't want anybody to take away from this that I'm not having fun or not enjoying it. But I do enjoy that part of it. But those are the kind of things that help make the job fun. And then especially when people come by the office and visit, we give them tours. Our friend Alvin came by and visited Soundtraxx, and we gave him a tour and showed him the facility, and he was amazed. He didn't think that we built anything here, and a lot of people don't realize that Soundtraxx builds here, and that's one of the reasons why we're number one in the industry. This is fun for you. We just got to announce this, but we're a 2-time Model Railroader Reader's Choice Award winner for favorite sound decoder, and that to me is big, because that means people understand a lot of what they're getting out of the Tsunami 2. And so that's kind of the reward for me for doing a lot of these shows, is helping people understand that. And so by making us the favorite brand really does say, the quality of the product and the quality of the people that work there.
Yeah, well, congratulations, too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
You said something about all the travel that you do and something about the trade shows. And something that I think people need to realize, and you can tell me, if I'm off base here, but it seems to me like, yeah, you have to be there all day. And yes, you are doing something that you love, but the rest of everybody else, they don't have to be there all day. They can leave when they can leave when they're done. So it's a little bit different, I'm sure, having to be there for a job. but I'm sure that it also helps a lot that you are really into what you're doing and have a genuine interest in when people come up and are talking to you about it because of what you said. You're getting ideas from them as well. I think that's a really
Yeah.
cool attitude to have, you know. So
Yeah, and I mean it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. When I'm helping people out in this hobby, whether it be teaching them how to use the Soundtraxx decoders, answering questions for them about our products, that's my little way of being able to pay back to the community that's given me so much over the years.
sure.
I know it sounds corny, but it's true.
No, it totally makes sense to me. I mean, look, nobody, like you were saying before, nobody is born knowing how to do all this stuff. And
Hmm.
you know, if you can pay that forward somehow by helping other people, but hey, you know, more power to you. I think that's a great thing.
Yep,
So,
absolutely. And when one of the ways we do that is we do post weekly videos on our YouTube channel, and you can find us at Soundtraxx Videos, or just search Soundtraxx into YouTube, and you can find all our videos. And we've been doing these short little 3 to 5 minute videos about particular features of the decoder, how to use them, maybe something as simple as sound selection, all the way up to complex, something like how to calibrate the dynamic digital exhaust, or set the equalizer. There's a lot of videos in there. And then also embedded in those is a webinar series that we've done. And these are designed from our training classes that we offer here in Durango, Colorado, where you can actually learn from us from the ground up. So we start off with just what is a Tsunami 2 and what is a decoder and just kind of the highlight features. Then we move into what is DCC and how does it work, and we show the little green man behind the curtain. What is sound? What is the science of sound? Most people don't understand how audio works, and we talk about that. We give you a class on soldering and so much more, even so much so as to how to use your DCC system. And we take 3 of the major brands and we do the same thing on all 3 systems to show we're still doing the same thing, but we're pushing different buttons. And that's where the familiarity with your system is going to unlock all the gold that's inside the Tsunami 2. And so these webinar series, they're posted on our YouTube channel. You can also find them at soundtraxx.com under the reference tab. There's a link directly there for the webinars. And that's where we try to really help out. And so these videos, especially unfortunately in a time where we're all kind of confined at home, this is a great opportunity to watch those webinars and get caught up. So maybe you might see and understand something that you didn't before, that now, oh wow, now you have a whole different look at your hobby, and now you can enjoy it a lot more. And so that's one of the things that we do to try to help out.
yeah, and I think that's a great resource that I think not a lot of manufacturers necessarily think of doing that. So I think that's a cool, right? I think that's a cool, it's all like a service really
Yeah.
when you think about it. And I should thank you
Yeah.
also for being on. Last year I did a DCC installation into an F59 PHI and met George up in Sacramento, where we did a whole thing. It was a short, really kind of a short thing, because we kind of skimmed the surface of how to program and set CVs and that kind of stuff to make it do the flashing headlights and stuff like that. Pretty cool. Now, I want to mention this because I know something about George that I don't think a lot of people know, and it kind of ties in with this Sacramento story. So when I went to Sacramento to meet up with George, we went and had lunch. We kind of hung out that afternoon, and during lunch we were talking about the travel, and because I understand you travel a lot, and it must get really hectic at times. And I think I asked him something like, "What kind of traveling would you like to do?" And he told me something that was not what I expected. Do you remember what I'm talking about? What?
I remember exactly what you're talking
So
about.
tell the viewers what your most interesting trip would be that you would like to take.
So the number one thing on my bucket list is to travel to South Africa and go diving with white sharks.
Great white sharks.
I've been fascinated with sharks since I was a kid. We always used to ask Mom, take us to the aquarium, take us to the aquarium. I've had fish in my house ever since I was a kid. I actually have a small aquarium now at the house, and just a fascination with sharks has always been there. And Shark Week is one of my favorite weeks, but I'm unfortunately always traveling, and so I have to DVR them and watch them later. But even when I was a kid, I would read books about white sharks, and they're like my favorite. And when Monterey Bay Aquarium, not too far from your neck of the woods, got their first great white shark a few years back, we actually traveled to go see that thing, and it ended up being about 3 weeks before they turned it loose. So the timing was just about perfect. But I remember being in that room, and there's a lot of kids there, and they're all, is that it? Is that it? Is that it? And then it made its appearance, and the room went quiet. Because we got there first thing in the morning. This was how important this was. I wanted to see it. We ran straight to that exhibit and saw the white shark. She was about 6 feet long and a gorgeous specimen, and it was just so fascinating. It's just so awe-inspiring. And so what I want to do is after watching a lot of these things, I want to go South Africa. I want to go shark diving.
So people actually do that, though. I mean, aren't you afraid aren't you afraid you're going to be, because they're predators, George? They might see you and think it's a really juicy seal or something, you know?
Well, I can understand that with a little bit of this going on, but at the same time, I mean, the reality is most of the shark attacks are a case of mistaken identity. They mistake us for their prey because either the water's sandy or there's commotion going on, especially on the beach when kids are playing. They interpret those waves through the ocean as a distress signal from a potentially injured seal. And so that's when they come up on it. And so being a free cage, or I'd love to do free cage, but I don't think I'm there yet. I need to get diving first. So I do a cage and be in a cage, but just to see those 20-foot beasts in the water, oh, that would be just the most awesome thing in the world to me.
I could see totally being impressed by that. So I told him he's crazy for wanting to swim with great white sharks. It's not something I would do. So, but whatever. I mean, I can totally understand being completely impressed with the size of these things because they're impressive animals, that's for sure. So is there anything else you want to say before we close this? Or?
Well, I will say that just if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, be sure you do, because we've got some great announcements coming up here in the next few months, possibly even one here in the month of April. So Be sure you're subscribed to that and also to our newsletter to make sure you get updates. And we'll be making some announcements here soon.
Okay. Well, and I know I'm on your mailing list too, because I get emails from Soundtraxx all the time. So I guess you can sign up for that on the website as well.
You can do it on the website, or you can send an email to customernews@soundtraxx.com.
Okay. Sounds cool. Well, hey, thank you very much for taking the time out of your schedule to talk with me here. And we'll have to catch up at some point in the near future.
Yeah, no problem. Next time you come by, maybe we'll have to do some operating with the layout.
And there's a chance that I might be able to get out to your area sometime in August. It's possible. Not sure
that'd
yet.
Be great.
Well, because they're having some huge thing out at Coombers and Toltec, and I know that's somewhat close to where you live. You don't know about that?
I forgot about that, but no, I forgot about it. I'm going to be there.
Yeah, so
those are two of my favorite locomotives, so I will be there.
Right, so if that happens, and if I get out there again, depending on this virus thing that's going on, we'll probably have a chance to do that. So that'd be cool. Cool. All right. Well,
sounds good.
Thank you, sir. And now back to me in the studio. Thanks again, George, for taking the time to talk with me. Something I've been finding out as I meet more people in the model railroading industry is just how many of them are pretty hardcore modelers. In many cases, these people are developing and bringing to market the products that they wished as modelers that they could have. And I don't know about you, but I think that's pretty cool. So I usually talk about upcoming events in the podcast after I tell you about what I've been doing. But this time, because of the pandemic, we don't really have anything to talk about. All the events that I knew about, they've all been called off. So I would like to ask you to please follow your community's guidelines so that we can end this pandemic as soon as possible. And I really hope that you all stay safe out there. And now for this month's YouTube program schedule. Next Saturday, the 11th, we have something new to the channel. It's a compilation called Model Trains Galore. I talked about this on the live show we did a couple weeks ago. You can find out more by checking out that video when it comes out. It's a good one, so you won't want to miss it. Then on the 18th, it's Chasing Trains in Niles Canyon. This episode comes from an event that was held last September, for which the Niles Canyon Railway ran not one, but two articulated steamers, double-headed, for their official celebration of what we're going to call the actual completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, as in from sea to shining sea. If you don't know the story of the actual completion on the Transcon, watch this show because we do talk about it. On Sunday the 19th at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, it's our next episode of TSG Live Shelter in Place. In this episode, I'll be on live with the best viewers on YouTube once again. I mentioned that I want to talk to you about video production best practices, so get your questions ready. I've been doing video professionally since 1998 and focusing on railroad-related video since 2005. If you have ever wanted to know how I get the results that I share with you on this channel, this is your chance. You want to get rid of wind noise? Maybe you're wondering how to decide which angle might be the best to record that train that you know is coming up the track soon. Maybe you want to know how to make your cell phone videos look better. I have some tips for that too. As a matter of fact, how about this? If you want to be sure that I get to your question, email it to me ahead of time. You're welcome to send an email to podcast@tsgmultimedia.com to have your question considered for the show, or you can go ahead and put a comment down in the comment section of this show, and I'll be sure to see it. Then, on the 25th, it's the return of Model Railroading with Jack Burgess, with an episode about power tools. Jack has a pretty good collection of tools in his workshop, and we all know that there's nothing better than having the right tool for a job. Then, of course, N-Scale Friday and Product Spotlight programs will come out on Fridays at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, whenever I have something to share with you. I have a couple of HO scale models on deck right now, but I'm waiting for the right time to spotlight them. So before I go, I want to take just a minute to thank Soundtraxx one more time for supporting the channel again this month. I really appreciate working with sponsors like Soundtraxx. They're a very solid company with great products and even better service. I invite other companies to contact me as well. If you would like to sponsor the channel, you can contact me by using the email podcast@tsgmultimedia.com. I'm always looking to partner with companies that make great products. I also want to invite you to become a member of the TSG Train Crew on Patreon. If you can help out with $2 a month or more, head over to patreon.com/tsgmultimedia. As part of the TSG Train Crew, you can feel really great about helping get the content that you enjoy on the channel, but you also get access to behind-the-scenes stuff and a lot of private previews, many times months ahead of when the programs come out for the general public. As always, I thank you for your continued support. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time.